It took me a ridiculously long time to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. 43 years, to be exact. I clearly remember the day when I received my first real adult job offer. I was so relieved I accepted it on the spot, even though I knew almost nothing about the role, even less about the industry. Yet 20 years later, there I still was, in exactly the same industry, doing a role that, if I'm being brutally honest, was very similar to the role I'd accepted all those years ago. And for a long time, I loved it. Working hard, playing much harder, moving into new teams, up into management, even off to a new country. Years flew past, then decades, until one October day, a little while after my 41st birthday, I woke up in some kind of blurry career coma, where I could barely distinguish 1 month from the next, 1 year from another. I was stuck on some sort of unbelievably never-ending work treadmill. And no matter what I tried, I just couldn't find the stop button. And even if I could, I wasn't even sure what else I could do to make my living. I'd been in one lane for so long, I wasn't even sure if I was capable of doing anything else, or who might want me, or let me. So I stayed, trudging on my non-stop work treadmill, while my Sunday night blues began earlier and earlier each week. And my dissatisfaction with my work life began to seep into my life. I tried to hide it, but even the kids noticed. Mommy was either too tired to speak after work, or she'd fall asleep halfway through bedtime stories. And my husband, even though I didn't have the courage to ask him at the time, I knew his wife wasn't anywhere near as funny as she used to be. And as time went on, I knew this could not be the truth, but it felt like I was the only person in the world who was in this kind of ugly career slump. Until I did the maths. I calculated that over the last decade of my career as a headhunter, I'd interviewed 2,500 people, professionals who, to varying degrees, were also not happy in their work. I was very much not alone, and this gave me strength to connect the dots, to see the common patterns, and to map out the well-trodden path of the common career slump. And here's what I found. We might start off bored. We're in the feeling flatlands. Or we're overworked, stuck on the stressy aisles. From these two early stages in the career slump, we can travel directly to the very dangerous productivity drop-off cliff. Why so dangerous? Because this is where a private career slump becomes a public career slump. Others start to notice that our heart's just not in it, and this can have very dangerous repercussions for our career. Now, if nothing else changes, we get to travel even deeper into the isolation of the stopped giving a damn. Yeah? And from there, it doesn't take long for us to travel to the dead end sea. Now, when I woke up from my coma, my career coma, I knew that I still gave a damn, but boy, did I know exactly where I was heading if I didn't create an escape plan, and soon. And then the straw, the tiny, tiniest little straw, broke the camel's back. My Sunday night blues began on a Tuesday morning. That's all it took. I found my stop button. And I decided to return to university to begin a master's in psychology. Now, let me tell you, going back to university after a 20-year gap was no joyride, but it gave me a golden opportunity to research those patterns I'd seen in the last decade of my career on a bigger scale, and to investigate potential solutions from all over the globe, and to pull them apart and put them back together again. And so, I want to explain to you, there is a way to escape a career slump. And I've got 3 surprising steps that might help you do that. The first is to recognize here. There is only one place to begin a career slump, and that's here, exactly where we are. But very few people in my research paused long enough to understand here or assess it in any depth whatsoever. What they absolutely knew was that here was wrong. And what they absolutely knew is that they wanted to get to there, some far-off place, a mystical place where work feels deeply joyful and adds to the spice of life, rather than sucking their souls dry. But that's not enough. In order to figure out what there might look like, we need to understand if we are standing in a deep, smelly, ugly pile of our kryptonite. Kryptonite are the things at work that crush your potential to do deeply satisfying work. The things at work that make your blood boil because they clash with your values or your personality. And the things that leave you drained, depleted, or knee-walking home from the office at the end of the day. Now, when I paused to look at what here looked like for me, here's what I discovered. I am strongly introverted. And that means I do my best thinking in silence. Yet, I had spent 20 years working in environments that were open plan. So sometimes I even had to wear a cowboy hat to tell other people to leave me alone so that I could finish thoughts. I was standing in my environment kryptonite. One of my core values is learning. Yeah, as you know, I've been kind of doing more or less the same role for 20 years. I was standing in my learning kryptonite. And the clincher for me, I'm a problem solver. But I realized, this is kind of tricky, but I realized that for 20 years, I had been mostly helping people to swap one treadmill for another. I was standing in a deep, smelly, ugly pile of my purpose kryptonite. Step 1 complete. I knew what here looked like, and I knew why it was so wrong. And I needed to crack on with this escape plan because I wasn't getting any younger. Step 2, figure out which talents bring you joy. I call these your superpowers. These are the things that you do more easily, more lightly, more naturally, more speedily than anyone else you know. When you do these things, you feel it in your belly. And when you get to do these things, a lot in a day of work, you come home fizzing with energy. But it's not all good, a word of warning about superpowers. Because using your superpowers has the potential to bring you joy, it can be tricky sometimes to stop using them. I'll give you a personal example. One of my superpowers is asking one more question than is socially acceptable. Yeah? It served me well in interviews and research. I can usually scrabble down and find a really unusual insight that others don't see. But boy, does it get me into trouble with my neighbors, or people who like privacy, or anyone who doesn't want to feel psychoanalyzed in the supermarket. If you know just one of your superpowers, just one, you get to control how much satisfaction and joy you have in work tomorrow. Step 3, the final step. Choose a problem that you're excited to solve. So when I discovered that the problem I was really, really excited to solve was the same problem that I've been trying to solve for 20 years, it kind of rocked my world. But the way, I understood now, the way I was doing it had stopped being satisfying because I was standing in my kryptonite and I wasn't using my superpowers enough. It is possible to escape a career slump by building a bridge from wherever you are to somewhere better in these 3 steps. Recognize the here. Get crystal clear on your kryptonite so that you can avoid it like the plague. Figure out which superpowers bring you joy so that you can don your magnificent superpowered cape and take it to work with you every day. And figure out the one problem that you are really excited to solve. Maybe not forever, but for the next few years. When you build this kind of bridge for yourself, you not only free yourself from that ridiculously boring, non-stop work treadmill, you get to create opportunities to do fierce work. Work where you choose to use your superpowers and point them at problems that matter to you. When you do fierce work, people at work cannot help but notice. But maybe, more importantly, people at home notice too. About 1.5 years after I'd escaped my slump, I walked into my tiny, quiet, silent home office, and this is what I saw on my whiteboard. So, I can't change the impact that my career slump had on my family in the past. But I know I am doing everything in my power to change the way my 2 daughters feel about their future work and how it might add to the spice in their lives rather than sucking their souls dry.